Hello everyone, this is Shiny Noctowls, and tonight I figured it would be good to share another podcast with you guys. I know that there have been some of my viewers who have been enjoying my podcast so far, and again, I kind of alternate between during my gameplay videos, which I know some of you guys enjoy as well as some of my other videos that I do. But I figured Um, for those who do like tuning into these type of podcast videos, I figure there's nothing wrong with that. So this video, I kind of want to explore a little bit about really the idea of, well, as you can see in my multicolored kind of title of coming together, this is what it's really all about. Is coming together. And so, what does that exactly mean? Well, I have taken an interest in really exploring world history in general, if you could see maybe from some of my other podcast videos. And I've learned quite a few things, whether it's about the Norse Bifrost, which is essentially what the Norsemen believed in, or the heathens, as Bjorn would say of Norway, where they believed that there was a rainbow bridge that connected uh, their spiritual realm, or to the realm of the gods that they believed in, and they believed it connected the earth realm, or they called it Midgard in their language. Uh, and it would connect to Asgard, which is their spiritual realm, or the realm which the gods reside in. And why is this so important? Well, because Bifrost is this rainbow bridge, and the rainbow alone is an important symbolism that I think is important to take note of. Because notice how until that rainbow is kind of seen, will they be able to connect to that higher or that spiritual realm, which they uh, try to go towards, whether, it's through Valhalla, which is essentially the Hall of the Slain, where, when brave warriors would die in battle, from what I've read about Norse myth or most Norse folklore, they'd be essentially taken to the realm of where they believe their gods resided in, or in some cases, I really think of it more so as not just gods or goddesses, but also spiritual ancestors. That they were really connected, just like us Celts and Gaels. And leading into that, I'll talk a little bit about Baisti. So that's the Irish word for rainbow. And some of the Irish or some of the Celts, Gaels, believed in that the rainbow would connect to the Fey realm. The Fey realm can be a number of things. It could be the other world, which in Celtic myth is essentially um, a spiritual realm that is almost like it's a parallel to our own world, really. And this is where different spirits reside, or could come from into our world. And this would be a number of things such as fairies and fae folk and other kinds of otherworldly beings, so to say. And when I think about the Fey realm, I not only think about, of course, the Fey realm, or the other world, but I also think about it could even have a connection to Avalon, which would be, and I'd have to see exactly where Avalon initially originates from, so it originates, of course, from Celtic origin. I'm just trying to think if it originally came from, wonder, close to the Welsh word for apple. Apple. Yeah, so there could be some not only Irish but also probably most likely Welsh origin. That's what I was kind of looking towards. That and this could be also um, the Welsh kind of view of the other world. Because again, although we are connected as Celts and Gaels, it's good to give uh, or at least recognize, not only, of course, the Irish and the Scottish, but also the Welsh, because they are just as much of a part of the Celtic or Gaelic way of viewing things, and uh, as well as other groups, really, as well as the Cornish. Yeah, and I only say this because I know a lot of people, when they think of Celtic, they only think of Irish, which is sad because, of course, the Irish are, of course, part of the Celtic people, but there are so many more Celtic people. There are of course, the Scottish, the Welsh, the Cornish, the Bretons from Brittany, the Galicians from Galicia, Spain, the Asturians, um, and maybe you could even go as far as I was talking to my Uncle Herman about Galilee, about what the Christians believe in, that Jesus came from Galilee or Yeshua. And Galilee sounds a whole lot like Gaelic, and it has been said that I think the Galatians actually settled in what is now known as modern day Turkey. And who's to say that they didn't? They also didn't become some of the ancestors of what is now known as, or what was known as Galilee. So it's interesting to see that connection. And so that's why, again, and this is something that I feel like, especially for the Irish, but even for other groups that claim to be Scottish or Welsh, there is this problem of thinking, we're not related. For example, we're not related to those, Spaniards from Spain, or we don't have that Iberian blood. But the reality is that a lot of the ancient Gaelic or Celtic people came from uh, Span, which was from Spain, and that was further confirmed um, by an Irishman, or really not just Irish, but Celtic or Gaelic, because of course, we see things as Irish, but if you have a further connection with um, Ireland or Scotland or the whole Isles in more ancient times, it was also referred to as Gaelic or Celtic and not just Irish. Um, or really, Eidra would be the original kind of name for it, Eidra. But that's Irish and Ireland and Irish, Eidra. So, but yeah, he went to the Spanish king, Red Hugh O'Donnell did, from the O'Donnell clan, which is in northwest Ireland and Donegal. And he told the Spanish king that we are connected, we are your people. 2,000 years, 1,000 years, that's nothing for what we're talking about. We are the same people. And the reason why that's so important was because at the time when British rule was still oppressive towards Ireland, fortunately nowadays it's not as bad as it once was. And actually, when I recently went to England a few years ago, the English treated me very well, I'll have to say. And even some of them treated me like family. I actually had a friend named Ruru. He's from Yorkshire. And he said, if you ever want to come to England, or Yorkshire, know that you're more than welcomed. And he was very nice to me. It just shows how far England has progressed in 700 years and how the English are very different than they once were. Now, of course, English Americans, or Americans descended from English or from the old British Empire, may still need a little bit more work. But I noticed the English from England have really progressed a long way as far as being more accepting of different cultures, really, which is a step in the right direction. Um, and this leads me to my next topic, or my next kind of crux. the Rainbow Prophecy, and this is spoken by the Cree and Hopi people, and I've heard also from the Cherokee and maybe other tribes. But the Rainbow Prophecy um, is essentially this vision of when the earth would be in most need, that there would be all these tribes that would come together. And notice it didn't just mention just Native American tribes. It mentioned all the tribes of the world, and all of them would come together to heal this earth, and they would be known as the Warriors of the Rainbow. And I think this is very important, especially when speaking about it from a Turtle Island perspective, or Turtle Island is what the I'm gonna try to do my best to pronounce it. Oni or Anishinaabe were the Anishinaabe people, which uh, descend from the people who lived in Canada. They are also connected to the Ojibwe and also the Cree. They spoke about this vision, and of course not only the Cree but also the Hopi, who live, I believe, in, let me check exactly where. Yeah, northeastern Arizona. Yeah. So there's that connection. And why is this so important? Well, because I've actually talked to my uncle Herman a lot about he currently lives in North Carolina and he has some very good relationships with the Cherokee, who is your Eastern Band of Cherokee, as he likes to tell me. Because there's also another group of Cherokee that live in Oklahoma. Um, but he told me that he's been or well, he's spent over 30 years with them, and really they kind of took him in when he was very young. And we talk a lot about the issues with the blood quantum that a lot of the native tribes have, where from what I've read or from what I've heard, you have to be 25% or more indigenous or of Native American origin. And not only of Native American origin in general, because this would this wouldn't necessarily, or I'm not sure if it would necessarily work with the people from Latin America. Uh, but essentially, you would have to be, for example, 25% Cherokee or 25% uh, other groups of. I'm not sure if the Lakota have the same principle, but there is this problem right there that having this strict kind of guideline of blood quantum can be an issue because from what my Uncle Herman told me, there was a Cherokee who ended up having a German mother, I believe, and since um, that was the case, and I'm not sure if they tested his blood quantum or something like that, the descendant, but essentially he was kicked off the reservation because he wasn't Cherokee enough in their eyes, whether through blood quantum or facial features or however you want to say it. And this was something that a leader of, or a spokesman of the Lakota Nation spoke of. His name is David Swallow. And David Swallow, he actually, I'd have to, not that David Swallow, by the way. um, so, David Swallow Jr., and I actually watched a video about him from this YouTuber called Peter Santinello. So Peter's essentially um, an Italian American who essentially films videos around the world or around the U.S. actually. But he spoke about this problem with racism, even in the tribal nation, and I feel like it's one of those things where if we're going to come together, we have to learn how to work together. And I believe that this is something that David was really trying to say in the video. When he was interviewed by Peter, and I'll get a picture of him and Peter together just so you guys know who Peter is. So this would be the video. And yeah, I think it was important because um, you look at these prophecies, the rainbow prophecy about all these tribes coming together, but if the blood quantum thing doesn't change, then that in itself is this blockade towards really bringing the people together. And I think that was something that uh, David Swallow kind of acknowledged, essentially. Um, and also speaking about learning how to combine both Western and Eastern medicine together and to come together really. And I'll have to see what David's Lakota name is, because I'm sure he would appreciate that. His name is Oha Muni. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I'll try it one more time. Wowita Aho Muni, which translates as walks with pride. That just shows you how proud he is of his name because, well, there it is right there, walks with pride. And so this is something that we have to really acknowledge that we have to understand our roots, and this is something that Bjorn from Norway really speaks about. I'm not just a white person, I'm not just a white man. I'm a Norseman, and I'm proud of my roots, of who I am as a Norseman. He actually he spoke in one of his videos that he was descended from, I believe, Egil Skallagrimsson, which was a Viking that actually, I believe it comes from the Egil saga, and it goes back to well, Scandinavia, but also I think maybe even to back to Sweden, where he, from what I read, was originally a Swedish Norseman who eventually migrated towards Norway. But yeah, no, it's important to learn about these things because um, this is how we come together. Um, and understanding our roots is important, whether it's Quechua, whether it's or I'll talk more about the Quechua here in a wee bit as well. But even just understanding the importance of Celtic knots or understanding the importance of how we're all interconnected. I mean, there it is right there. And understanding our hearts and how we really come together is really very important actually. Um, so I'm going to try to see how I can break this down a little bit more. Um, so I think the reason why I mentioned the Quechua is because, well, part of my ancestry or part of my native ancestry I do have. And again, it may not reach the blood quantum for, for some of the tribes up here. It's anywhere from 10 to 15%, but it doesn't really matter what percent it is because it's still part of my rainbow. It's kind of like, imagine a rainbow and notice how the rainbow has all these colors. And imagine, part of the rainbow could be 30% blue, 20% red, and 10% green, 5% yellow, and 2% orange. Just because the rainbow doesn't have 25% orange, it has 2% orange instead. That 2% that orange is still there. It may not be as much orange as 25% or whatever percent what you want to put it, but orange is still there as well as the other colors. And so the reality is that I think I talked to my dad about this. Because in what I've learned from Latin America is that, at least from what I've learned, what I've heard, a lot of the indigenous people or people who test out, even if they have 100% indigenous ancestry, don't receive a check or that kind of compensation as they do in the U.S. or Canada. And there's actually been a lot of fighting that's been going on between the tribes of the U.S. and Canada with some of the tribes down south in Mexico and Latin America. And I think the thing about it is that this is something that I think the Cree and Hopi people really thought about, and maybe even the Quechua, some of the Quechua. Like I think there was this video that I watched. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. It was a really good video, actually. I'm going to see if I can get it here, because it's very important, I think, to mention this. Okay, right here. Peruvian of Inca descent talks religion and connection to Israel. So why was this video important? It was important because the Peruvian shaman, or essentially becoming a shaman that probably in time will become an elder of his own, or a teacher really, spoke about him going all, even though he was born or he was born from what I remember in Peru, or at least he is of that descent. He went to the Navajo or Diné Nation, and the Navajo or Diné people, they live. I want to make sure I get this right because I know some of them are like, you want to make sure you get this right. All right, so they live in the southwestern United States, but I'm going to check what state. So it'd be northeastern Arizona and southeastern Utah. Yeah. So he went to the Diné Nation, and from what I remember, what he said is that he connected well with them, and they accepted him with open arms. And he told him to keep praying, keep sharing, keep doing what you're doing. And he also spoke to I think he spent maybe a bit of time with the Lakota as well. And he essentially talked a little bit about the eagle feather that he's holding in his hand. And essentially, that eagle feather is important from what he spoke about because it's essentially one way of speaking the truth or speaking your truth, which is, I think, a very powerful message indeed. So notice how the Navajo or the Lakota, at least what he spoke about, didn't ask him, or didn't tell him, oh, you don't come from a tribe from the U.S. or Canada, go back to Peru. No, it was more so, this is from the energy I got, this is our brother, we should come together and we should heal. Because the reality is they are brothers, or we are all connected. In the sense that even with the Native American ancestry I did, and I did it, when I was talking about my last podcast, I was talking about true ancestry. I spoke about how the reality is that the tribes, they moved around all over the Americas. It wasn't like they just stayed in one area. And from what I gathered from the American samples I was matched to, it was relatively distant, but it was still there. I was getting people all the way from like parts of the Bering Strait, Pacific Northwest, and I actually live in the inland Northwest. So this is in places like Washington State, which borders North Idaho. Even places like New Brunswick, the Inuit people, which is all the way up towards Alaska, Athabascan. I mean, the reality is if people, and of course, down here you have Mexico, the Aztec, and then you have Mayan and ancient Peru, and all the way down here, a little bit more distant. But it just shows you that these people that even were lived as far south as Colombia or Peru, they didn't just live in or they just weren't always in that area. Some of their ancestors may have come from up north, even as far north as Alaska. So this is why we really have to work on this idea that I'm Native American and you're not because I receive a check every month. And I'm sad to say that, but this is part of the problem that we have to work on. And it's the truth. It's the truth, and some people are not going to like to hear that, but that's what I've gathered when I've read a lot of these YouTube comments about people fighting back and forth. And again, I know YouTube comments may not always be the best place to get an educated opinion, but it shows you some of the problems that can be seen. How, some people might say, you're not Native American because you're a Mexican or you're, whatever, really. Oh, any place from Latin America. What these people don't realize is that these people that had migrated down south to Mexico, well, of course, there may have been some indigenous people who were already there. Just like anything else, people mix, people come together, and it could have been that as people were coming down south from Alaska, uh, Canada, all these places, and there weren't really borders back then until the European migration came in. But the reality is that these people moved all around. So for someone to say I'm more American than you because I live in the U.S. or Canada is really nonsensical if you think about it. It's like someone from Sweden tells a person from Denmark, or Norway, you're not really Scandinavian because you don't live in Sweden. I mean, it's nonsensical. It's like, of course they're Scandinavian, they live in Scandinavian countries. How is that any different than the Americas or Turtle Island and its shield? Uh, you know, when I say its shield, by the way, when I look at the image of South America in particular, it kind of looks a little bit like a shield. And so I'm going to see if I can pull this up to show you guys. So when I think about Turtle Island, I think about really the tip of Alaska all the way to kind of the bottom of Central America. Kind of looks like a turtle, really, if you look at it closely. And then South America to me looks more like a shield, like a protective shield in a sense. And in some ways, I guess if you think about the Amazon rainforest, in some ways it is kind of a shield for the earth. And in some ways, I can see why a lot of tribes down there really say, it's important to take care of our forest, our earth, because it is important. But yeah, no, I think that the reality is people migrate, and they could have even come as far. Well, of course, some people say they can't come from Asia, but some of the tribes could have migrated as far west as Tibet. As far in Asia. And I watched this video about this Quechua elder I think he was from the Kiro tribe, and it's a Quechua tribe, or descendant of the Inca people. And it talked about how in time there would be this Tibetan woman or this Tibetan lady that would come from Tibet, and she would go to Peru and help the people down there. And it just shows you how important this connection is. And I think my mom one time told me that if you look at the way Tibetan women and Peruvian women do their hair, or even just some of their dress, it's very similar in some ways, and even some of their, of course, facial features. Yeah. So you look at this Peruvian woman here, And then you look at I'm going to see a Tibetan woman. Uh, you see this, and then and look at the beads. Look at the detail that they have, but also look at some of the details of the Peruvian women, and look how it's kind of there is a similar resonance there, similar connection, as if and there was a time where they may have had a shared ancestry, the Tibetans and the Peruvians. And not only that, but I also learned in Quechua, the way you would say, essentially the sun would be enti, and in Japanese, and it sounds very close to the Japanese word ente, or the N would mean fire. So, even Peru actually had a Japanese president not too long ago, and it could be more than just a coincidence. Not this Japanese president, but this Japanese president. He served time in Peru, and it just shows how there was probably, some kind of ancient or shared ancestry, maybe even between the Japanese or the ancient Japanese and the Quechua, or because it just sounds very similar. And of course, here's an image of some of the indigenous Japanese before the Han Chinese came and settled in Japan in history. Um, I think some people try to connect the indigenous Japanese to the some of the Pacific Native Americans of the Northwest. And this just shows there really is this connection where it's not just I'm isolated. I'm isolated in this one area. People really do migrate, which honestly is not surprising at the very least. And so I just wanted to share that mainly just to show how people have feet, and if people can't cross a landmass with their feet, they will get on a boat and they will sail. And so that's how it is. And yeah, no, I think it's important to learn about this because people or some people can be very narrow-minded about this idea that people are somehow uh, isolated when really we are really more interconnected than we think. Which again is no it is no surprise. Now some people may be shocked and say this is not possible. How can this be? Well, again, it's as I've said before, it's very simple. And I think sometimes people it's not even that they don't or if it's not a fact of knowledge, it may be they might refuse to acknowledge it because acknowledging it can be tough for some people to acknowledge, how some people are interconnected. And as my uncle Herman tells me, a person could have been both slave and master. And I'm not butch. I'm just saying it how he said it. This was his own words. And even with the Saxons, there was a time where us Gaels and Celts fought with the Saxons, but I will give credit to where credit is due. And one of the Saxon kings, he told his people, do not look down on other people, for you were once looked down at Egypt. Which means that, contrary to popular belief that Germanic or even some Scandinavian people only originated it from Germanic tribes and nowhere else, surprise, surprise, here is the Saxon king saying, really, our ancestors once came from Egypt. And maybe even if you go further in time, they could have been related to the Dodoga tribe from uh, from Niger and Mali. And these were people who believed in the Syrian, uh, believed to talk to the Syrian people, as a kind of a star race. And the series is also this would be like one image of them from Series B. And also the Norsemen also believed in some ways Ceres as well. Um, I think even there was this one YouTuber I watched, he was kind of gloating about how great the Saxons were, and Bjorn and I would probably tell him, get that shit off your face. But anyways, there was one point he did have that was at least somewhat meritable. And one of those points was this idea that I think it was said that people in southern Denmark kind of connected with this image of the Syrian dog star. And, well, here's another image from Loki, or Loka Brenna. The brightest star in the night sky known to most as Ceres was called Loka Brenna by the Nordic people. The name meant burning by Loki, or Loki's torch. So there's another connection to Ceres right there. And this is another thing I try to tell people. A lot of people, even, and I might, if Debbie Solaris ever, if she ever once speaks to me, there's a lot of these people that believe Palladians mainly come from Nordic or Germanic people. But the reality is, when I look at a lot of Germanic Nordic people, I also see mainly a lot of Syrians. And I think people, they may have trouble distinguishing between the two because, some of them can both have blonde hair, blue eyes, but it doesn't mean they're exactly the same. I mean, they could be maybe cousins, or one could be more feminine, the one could be more masculine, but they still have their own roots. Like with the Palladians, when I think about Palladians, I think about the word plan, which means Greek sailor, or well, it's the ancient Greek word meaning to sail. And Pleiades has a lot of origins in Greek mythology, but also some origins in Native American and Australian folklore as well. And I think even Japanese and maybe even Chinese. But anyways, yeah. So I think people, they may not, I'm not going to say every person, but there are some people that may just need to do more research on this and understand that it's not just one black and white or even just gray aspect. This is another thing. I talked to my dad's wife, Julie, and she said, "Who are the people on the earth who need the most healing?" And I said, "The Northern Europeans." And I think it surprised her. And I told her why. I told her because a lot of the people in Northern Europe, or the descendants, some of them, still have to heal from this gray energy. And what do I mean by gray energy? Well, it's healing the remnants of the hate that still lingered on in that part of the world after the Second World War and after, a variety of things happened. And they had to heal from this flat Earth kind of way of looking at things. And it took them time because, a lot of these people I've met have struggled to really see the silver lining because a lot of them were really really struggled with self-hatred. But you have to help them understand you do have a culture and it's not just based on hate, and you have a good heart, and you really have to help them see the silver lining so they can continue ahead. This is what it's all about. It's really about coming together, you know, seeing the rainbow. And this is just part of the process. And it's not easy. It's not easy for them because sometimes I'm laughing because it's silly, really. It's like my dad's wife is like, I don't just want to be a white person. And I just have to tell her you're not just a white person. You might be connected to that to your Vietnamese soon to be maybe daughter-in-law, that you might actually have a shared origin or shared ancestry, maybe going back to East Asia. And to me, it's really a no-brainer. Because sometimes, I mean, even if you think about the word Caucasian, guess what? It has the word Asian in it. So and I think there was a time where the Huns or different Mongolic people were in that area. So and probably mixed with the people. So to me, it really is a no-brainer, honestly. Um, yeah. But anyways, so why is the rainbow so important? So the rainbow is important because it really connects a variety of cultures, as I mentioned earlier. The Celtic people, or the Gaelic people, the Norsemen, the Native Americans, and maybe even the ancient Greeks. You also hear the word Elohim, which is another kind of word for the rainbow. Or, yeah, and even, for example, in ancient Greek myth, we had Iris, which was a rainbow goddess. So here's another image of probably really the Pleiadians, I'd imagine. And so this is what we have to educate people about, that when people think Pleiadians are just these hateful people that a hateful, racist, dare I say, Nazi air quotes, came up with. This is far from the truth. The real truth is that the Palladians, again, this is why I talk about we're really healing with that gray energy, because a lot of this confusion has been caused by people just seeing it from a gray energy or even gray starseed perspective that really has had to be healed with. But as we're healing with them and as we're helping them understand, you're not a hateful person, you have a good heart, and we want to help you. This is where we educate them about the rainbow, about why it's so important and how it gives color to the earth, and really understanding the importance of the rainbow versus just the dark cloud or the dark skies. And again, you know, we as people, I mean, unless if you're colorblind, most of us do see in the rainbow and not just in black and white or in shades of gray. I call it shades of rainbow because this is what it's really all about. And so we're almost having to educate these people to really understand how to see things in color and not just in a binary sort of way, so to speak. And I think that's also very important as well. And yeah, no, I think that in time, a lot of this will change, and this just comes partly from educating people and also helping them to have this option of becoming more open-minded in time. And it can be tough for some people because some people they don't like to think. They just like to be told what to do. But this is not how it works for everyone, at least not for individuals like Bjorn and I, and as well as probably many others who, really enjoy or really value critical thinking or the ability to critically think for oneself. And so, yeah, it really is important indeed. Um, so anyways, guys, I'm gonna see if I can, talk a wee bit more about this before I wrap it up. But yeah, no, I figured, oh, another thing I want to mention, and this was something my dad's wife and I talked about one time, um, that prejudice is really can be a universal problem. And well, really, that's why when I talk about this rainbow, of course, as I mentioned earlier, Northern Europeans or some of them may be the ones who may need the most healing with the rainbow. But that does not exclude the Africans, the Native Americans, or the East Asians, or other groups of people from also healing from this as well, because there are also these problems again, whether it's blood quantum or you're being too light skinned or too whatever, essentially not looking exactly like me kind of problem. And this affects all groups of people on the earth. And so we have to educate these people that just because a person is not 100% orange or 100% yellow or 100% green or 100% purple or whatever, it doesn't mean that that is still not part of their color. It's just now they've added green, they've added blue, they've added red, they've added yellow, they've added orange as part of their rainbow. And that is still just as special. And maybe even opens the gateway to other, not only cultures, but even star races. Because at least for me, when I connect with my starseed origins, I connect with Pleiades, Dragon or Dragonkin, Antares, Andromeda, Andromedan, Lyra, and Orion. And this is important because it really, it's meant to really, bring people, really together and understanding why all these different colors really, uh, are meant to bring people together. Why all these different tribes of people that may look different, but come together for a cause. Why it's so important that we come together and we really heal. Because this is what it's really all about. It's really all about doing that healing, doing that coming together work, and really understanding why this is so important. Why why we really should value this. And I might actually maybe use this for my thumbnail. Um, I'll see if I can maybe credit the artist. So, that might be a good idea. So people can know where it comes from. But anyways, I think that's gonna be it, guys. I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys found some value in it, and I hope you have a good rest of the day or evening whenever you're watching this. Slangafol, or, as I'm going to explain to my viewers, Slangafol means bye for now in Irish, which essentially means, I'm going to be departing for now, but there will be a time where we will speak again. And so with that, I will be heading out. Take care, guys. Take care. Slangafol. Bye for now.